Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to Q&A class. My name is Dr. Meghna Garg and I am biology faculty at Q&A. Students, am I audible? By seeing your responses in the chat box, I know I am audible. Okay, so thank you everyone for responding. So now we will quickly move ahead with the chapter which is life processes. Life processes we had already been covering during the previous classes and we had already covered nutrition in this. So before I further move ahead with this, do you have any doubts in nutrition? Do you have any doubts in nutrition? Any doubts? No one? All good? Okay. Then we can move ahead. So today we are going to begin with respiration, and particularly in previous class we had already discussed what is internal respiration and what is external respiration, and also we had seen that what exactly is the passage of air from outside to lungs. Okay, so in a quick recap, let's recall this passage. So now I am going to tell you the first part of the passage. I'll play safe this time. I'll write nostrils or nose. Okay, now I'll ask one of you to unmute yourself and then you have to follow the sequence likewise this. Okay, Tehin, unmute yourself. Tehin, unmute yourself.
Mamasmum, mamasmum.
Yes, Tehin, the question is from nose, the air goes into where? The air goes to where, which is the common passage for food and air.
The windpipe,
No,
the
which is
pharynx.
Mhm. Okay, then open your notes meanwhile. Okay, now the question is passed to Devi Maya. Devi Maya,
Pharynx.
very good. Pharynx. Then Raghavi, after pharynx? Hmm?
Larynx.
Larynx is the voice box, yes, but apart from larynx, so larynx basically the main where air goes to. Larynx is okay, but after that,
Trachea.
trachea. Trachea is also called as Raghavi. Which pipe?
Ma'am, can I say?
No, no,
Windpipe,
no.
ma'am. Actual
Windpipe.
windpipes.
Windpipe, yes. Yes. Now, Ragul, your turn. After trachea, the air goes to
Alveoli.
hmm?
Alveoli.
Bronchiole. No. Okay. So the question is again passed to Tehin. Tehin, after trachea, what comes next in sequence? Hmm?
After trachea, it's bronchi.
Bronchi. Yes. So basically, there are left and right bronchi. Okay. Now the question is passed to Joven. Joven, after bronchi comes was
Bronchioles.
yes, bronchioles. Last Raghul. After bronchioles comes what?
Alveoli.
Louder, Raghul, I cannot hear your voice.
Alveoli.
Alveoli. Alveoli, not alveole, alveoli. Okay. So alveoli are the final balloon shaped structures in which the final gaseous exchange takes place. So this entire structure, this is called as respiratory tree. This is called as respiratory tree. Okay. Now, so, topic weightage for this topic would be one question, and we are going to read today exchange of gases at alveoli level, and also we are going to talk about cellular respiration. So now let's see exactly what are alveoli. So alveoli, they are the terminal part of the bronchioles where finally the bronchioles they terminate, and bronchioles they are all situated in your lungs. Okay, they are all situated in your thoracic cavity. Now, if we zoom in the section where bronchioles are ending, okay, we are zooming in this section. So see, this was your left and right bronchi. See from here, this was your right bronchi and this was your left bronchi. Left bronchi and right bronchi. Okay. Now let's see this that the right bronchi is finally now we have zoomed in into this. So this was your right bronchi. Okay. Now from this bronchi finally Bronchi are basically the branches of the windpipe. Okay, so the trachea is getting divided into two major right and left bronchi. The bronchi further divide into bronchioles. So now these are final small branches of the bronchi, which are called as bronchioles. These are all bronchioles. Bronchioles are what? They are further branches of bronchi. And finally, the bronchioles terminate into alveoli. Okay, they are final alveoli. Now let's see the details section of these alveoli. These alveoli are basically balloon-like structures. They are balloon-like sacs which are present in the lungs. And these alveoli have very thin walls. So now you can see this is the balloon-like structure. Okay. And these alveoli, this individual unit which I am drawing here, these are all alveoli. These individual rounded structures, they are all alveoli, alveolar cells. Okay. Now, thin walls of the alveoli. So first of all, the first thing to note here is that alveoli, they have thin walls. Why thin walls particularly? Because thin walls makes the diffusion of gases efficient. It makes the diffusion of gases efficient. It does this task properly. So that's why there are thin walls of the alveoli. Now, these alveoli, they are surrounded by a network of capillaries. You can see from here the red and blue blood vessels. Okay, that means one contains the deoxygenated blood, the blue ones, and one contains the oxygenated blood, which is the red ones. Okay, basically the used up blood which is coming from the different cells of the body, that is in blue, and now once oxygen will be transferred into these alveoli, the blood is again turned red as it is shown here by the color combination. Okay, so basically, these alveoli, they are lined by very thin blood capillaries, and in these blood capillaries, the final diffusion act takes place. Okay, thin blood vessels. Now let us see how does this exchange of gases takes place. So during breathing, oxygen enters into the lungs from the nose. So oxygen is entering inside, it is going into bronchia, bronchioles, and finally alveoli. Okay. Now the alveoli, just as we had discussed it in previous slide, the alveoli, they are surrounded by blood capillaries. And what do blood capillaries contain? Blood capillaries contain blood, obviously. So now let's see a zoomed in section of the alveoli. Now this is your alveoli, this balloon shaped structure which is shown to you here. That is your alveoli. And this structure which you can see from here, which is running parallel to it, that's an blood capillary. This is a blood capillary. Okay. So that's a blood capillary and that's a alveoli. And these are various cells of the body to which now finally this blood would be delivered. So now since oxygen rich air is entering from the nose, from the windpipe, from the bronchi into the alveoli. So now the alveoli obviously contains a higher amount of oxygen as compared to the blood. This blood was coming from here. This blood was coming from the various cells of the body. This blood was from the various cells of the body. It had been delivered to heart and from heart it had been coming here. Okay. So now this this blood which is present in these blood capillaries, here the concentration of oxygen is very, very low because already this oxygen has been utilized by the cells of the body. Okay. So now what will happen? You can see from here, the blood is flowing into these blood capillaries. Now recall from the first class where we had discussed the components of the blood. Do you people know the components of the blood? Do you people know the components of the blood, everyone? Yes or no? Do you people know the components of the blood? Everyone, do you know the components of the blood? Everyone, start responding, students. Devi Maya, Jovin, Alan. Yes, Raghavi, okay. Raghul, Tehin, okay. So basically, blood contains a liquid portion which is called as plasma, and suspended in that plasma, you have various type of blood cells. Now, these blood cells, they are of three different type: red blood cells, they have white blood cells, and they are platelets. Now, particularly the red blood cells, they are responsible for carrying oxygen. Yes, they are responsible for carrying oxygen. also in little amounts, okay, also in little amounts carbon dioxide, but in very little amounts. The majority of carbon dioxide travels in blood in plasma. Yes, so carbon dioxide travels in blood in plasma majority form, but little amount is also traveled by combining with RBCs. Now, particularly in RBCs, we have a pigment which is called as hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin, it binds with oxygen, and that's how it carries the oxygen with it itself in the blood. So now this is a red blood cell which is shown to you here. Now this red blood cell has hemoglobin present in it. Okay, so the hemoglobin which is present in the RBCs of the blood, it will absorb oxygen. It will take up oxygen from the thin walls of these alveoli, from the thin walls of these alveoli. And again, the blood capillaries which are lining these alveoli, they have also very thin capillaries. Both have very thin, sorry, not thin capillaries, thin membranes. Okay, so now what will happen? So this is RBC which is shown to you here. That is your red blood cell. Okay, now this red blood cell has hemoglobin present in it. Okay, now the oxygen from the alveoli will move into the blood capillaries, and then it will combine with hemoglobin, and then it will be carried to the various cells of the body and finally being delivered to them. Okay, clear to everyone? How does gaseous exchange takes place at this level, at the alveoli level? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Okay. Raghavi, Devi Maya, Ragul. Okay. Alan, Joven, Tehin. Start responding, people. Yes, good. Okay. Now, in a similar manner, what will happen? The concentration of carbon dioxide will be more here. So now carbon dioxide will diffuse. Since we know the process of diffusion, you have this already studied this in class 11. Diffusion is basically the movement of gases from the from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. Okay, so obviously the concentration of carbon dioxide is more in the blood. So carbon dioxide will diffuse into the alveoli. So at the same time, carbon dioxide from the tissues. So first of all, from the tissues, it is taken up by the blood, and from the blood, it is being delivered finally to the alveoli. Now, this whole process of gaseous exchange, whether it is for oxygen or whether it is for carbon dioxide, all this process is occurring only and only because of diffusion. What's the force running behind this? That is diffusion. Okay, that is movement of gases from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. So carbon dioxide is moving from the cells into the blood, and from the blood it is moving into the alveoli. Now from the alveoli, the carbon dioxide will move out through the nose, through the nasal passage. Okay, so that's how diffusion takes place. Now, hemoglobin helps in exchange of gases between the alveoli and the surrounding tissues. We have discussed this. So hemoglobin is also called as respiratory pigment. During the breathing cycle, okay, so this is again very important thing. What happens that during the breathing cycle, we are continuously taking in air and we are continuously exhaling out carbon dioxide. However, there is a little amount of air always present in our lungs, even when we have exhaled out completely. There is a little amount of air present, and that is just to prevent the collapse of the lungs, to prevent collapse of the alveoli. Okay, just like in trachea, you had C-shaped cartilaginous rings. So in absence of air, the trachea would not collapse. In a similar manner, you have always a little amount of air left in your lungs, even after the expiration, even after the exhalation, and that remains in the lungs to prevent its collapse. Okay. Now solve this question, everyone. Solve this question. Okay. Everyone has given option number B. Yes, very good. Well done, everyone. The correct answer is option number B. Now, how does gaseous exchange takes place in plants? We have talked about humans, but how does gaseous exchange takes place in plants? Okay. Plants, they do not have respiratory organs. Obviously, they do not have lungs. They do not have mouth or nose to breathe. Okay. So what will happen? Now, lungs are not present. Okay. So plants, they are also stationary. So they are fixed at one place, so their energy requirement is also less. The process of respiration in plants is low as compared to animals, and there is very little transport of gases as well. Now, all of you, I think, know that we have leaves. Okay, we have leaves. I think we have already covered this in nutrition part. Okay, we have leaves present, and in the leaves, you have small openings present, and those small openings are called as those small openings are called as those small openings are called as which are present on the surface of leaves? Stomata. Very good. So through these stomata, the exchange of gases takes place. Okay. So carbon dioxide is basically being taken in by the plants through this stomata. Okay. And also oxygen will also be liberated out during this same stomatal pores only. Okay. Now, exchange of gases is again taking place with the help of diffusion. Just like in animals, similar process is occurring here, which is diffusion. Higher concentration to lower concentration. Now, there is one very, very interesting thing which is mentioned in your NCRT, and this was asked even during one of the PYQs of board. Okay. Now, tell me, during photosynthesis, during photosynthesis, okay, which gas is taken in and which gas is released? Which gas is
CO2
taken?
is taken in and O2 is.
Okay. Everyone else? Do you agree with Raghavi's answer or do you have a different opinion? Everyone start writing your answers in the chat box. Very good. Very good, everyone. Yes. So what is happening? Carbon dioxide is taken in and oxygen is released. Now, during the photosynthesis process, what is the final outcome? Why plants are performing photosynthesis? They are synthesizing what? They are synthesizing what? What's the entire motive behind photosynthesis? Starch, or in a simpler manner, direct product of starch is a stored form. The direct product of your photosynthesis is, recall the equation of photosynthesis, CO2 plus H2O gives what? Plus oxygen plus H2O. It gives you what? Glucose. Yes. Very good, Devi Maya, Raghul. Raghul, which carbohydrate? Glucose. Yes. Very good, Raghavi. Alan, very good. Yes. Tehen, very good. So that's Alan, good. Glucose. So what happens during this photosynthesis process? The final outcome is production of glucose. Okay. Now, we humans, what we people are doing? We humans are consuming this glucose from outside. What we are doing? We are taking up complex food materials and we are digesting it into glucose finally. Okay. We have studied this. However, plants are directly manufacturing this glucose on their own. Now, in both plants and animals, please listen to this very carefully. Now, in both plants and animals, glucose finally has been derived. In animals, we have taken complex sources and digested it to form glucose, whereas in plants, they are automatically themselves manufacturing glucose. Now, what happens with this glucose, whether it is plant or whether it is animal cells, the fate of glucose would be same. Yes. So now what will happen? This glucose will enter into a process which is called as respiration. So here the glucose will be broken down. The glucose will be broken down to generate ATP. So during the process of respiration, to break down this glucose, oxygen is taken in. And during the process of respiration, one of the products which is formed apart from ATP is carbon dioxide. So finally, during the process of respiration, carbon dioxide is released. Okay, so this process of respiration, that is common to both human and plants, to animals and plants. It occurs in both animals and plants. Whereas the process of photosynthesis was only unique to what? That was only unique to plants. Have you understood this? Have you understood this, students? Understood?
Yes, ma'am, understood.
Okay. Now, so what happens during daytime? There is a process due to open stomata, stomata are open. Okay. Now, since stomata is open during the daytime, photosynthesis is occurring. Also, respiration is one such process. Respiration is what basically? Respiration is producing the energy, ATP, which is being used by cells. Now, whether it is day, whether it is night, respiration occurs in us all the time, whether it is plants or whether it is animals. Respiration occurs at all the times. Okay, because eventually for the functioning of plants or animals, they need ATP, and that ATP finally comes from respiration. So whether it is plants or whether it is animals, respiration occurs all the time. But during the day in plants, photosynthesis is also occurring. So during the daytime, photosynthesis is also occurring in plants and respiration is also occurring. Both the tasks are occurring simultaneously. So photosynthesis, oxygen is released. This oxygen is being taken for the process of respiration. So this oxygen, which is being used for respiration, this oxygen which is being now used to convert glucose into ATP, to break down glucose into ATP, that is coming from the photosynthesis. See, plants have their own way of managing their own things. Okay, they do not rely much on the atmospheric oxygen. Obviously, they do, but not much. Okay, once they are doing photosynthesis in good amount, then they can rely on the oxygen being generated by themselves only. Okay, so now oxygen is utilized for the respiration. Now, during the respiration, carbon dioxide is released, and now this carbon dioxide can again be taken up for the process of photosynthesis, isn't it? So carbon dioxide is given out, and that carbon dioxide can be used during the process of photosynthesis. So that's how during the daytime there is a balance. There can occur a balance. The amount of gases released and the amount of gases consumed, they might be they will be in a very balanced manner. Okay. But what happens during night time? So during night time, since light is not available, so the process of photosynthesis will not take place. The process of photosynthesis will not take place. Whatever glucose had been manufactured by the plants during the day, only that will be broken down during the respiration at night. Okay, whatever left glucose is there. So photosynthesis is not occurring. So finally, oxygen is not getting released. So during the respiration, now plants will depend on what? They will depend on atmospheric oxygen. So now during respiration, the oxygen comes from the atmosphere, and here more carbon dioxide is eliminated, because now this carbon dioxide will not be used by the photosynthetic procedure. So this carbon dioxide will be released into the atmosphere. Thus, during the night time in plants, carbon dioxide is eliminated in a more amount. Okay. So students, one important thing to mention here is that carbon dioxide is released by the plants both during day and night. Okay. Please write this down, that during, everyone, please start writing it down, that the carbon dioxide is released by the plants. Everyone, are you people writing? Are you people writing? What am I dictating to you? Yes. So carbon dioxide is released by the plants during the process of respiration. During the process of respiration, which occurs both during day and night. Which occurs both during day and night. Full stop. But but during the morning or during the day, but during the day, the carbon dioxide released is taken up is taken up by the photosynthetic reactions, is taken up by the photosynthetic reactions. Full stop. Since during night, there is no photosynthesis occurring, thus carbon dioxide release is more evident. Clear? Everyone, have you noted down this? Okay. Now, respiration, let's move to cellular respiration. So we had discussed this in previous class that respiration, it has two phases. Breathing is the outer phase, which is called as external respiration, and the inner one is cellular respiration, internal respiration. Okay. Now, cellular respiration. So now students, what happens? Finally, you have one cell of your body. To this cell, glucose is being given. Glucose is being supplied. From where this glucose is coming? It is coming from the digestive system. And also to this cell, oxygen is being supplied. Oxygen is coming from where? From the respiratory system. Now what happens? The ultimate motive of cellular respiration. What is the aim of cellular respiration? The aim is to generate ATP. That is its aim, that we have to produce ATP. Now what happens as soon as glucose enters inside the cell? Till now, I have not talked about aerobic or anaerobic respiration. Okay. I'm just telling you that glucose has entered inside the cell and oxygen has also entered inside the cell. Now let us assume that oxygen for now has not entered inside the cell. Let me explain you with this method. Okay. Initially, glucose has entered into the cell through the digestive system. Now, as soon as glucose enters inside the cell, finally, okay, sorry, not finally, initially, glucose will be broken down into pyruvate. This process is called as glycolysis. So glucose is 6 carbon molecule and pyruvate is 3 carbon molecule. So there will be 2 pyruvate molecules formed from one glucose. This process is called as glycolysis, and glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of the cells. Very, very important question. In the cytoplasm of the cells. Okay, so as soon as glucose enters inside the cell, it will not look for anything else. It will first of all be converted into pyruvate, 2 molecules of pyruvate. Now, very, very important thing to note down here is that this process of glycolysis is not dependent on oxygen. That means, students, in majority of the books, there is one thing which is written wrong, or that is confusing or misleading. In some of the books, it has been written that this process of glycolysis is anaerobic. See, this is not anaerobic. Simply, this glycolysis occurs in an oxygen independent manner. That means even if oxygen is present, then also glycolysis will occur. Even if oxygen is absent, then also glycolysis will occur. So this glycolysis is not dependent on the presence or absence of oxygen. Okay. So as soon as the glucose enters inside the cells, in the cytoplasm itself, the glucose will be broken down into two molecules of pyruvate or pyruvic acid. Okay, so in your books also, please note this, please go through it thoroughly, that it is an oxygen independent reaction. That means whether it is aerobic or whether it is anaerobic, it does not matter. Now, if you can see your NCRTs, in NCRT it has been given in a very nice manner. Okay, see, the glucose has been initially converted into pyruvate. And now from here, the different fates of pyruvate are being shown. That is how it is shown in your NCRT. Have you people seen this?
Yes,
Have you people
ma'am.
seen this? Yes. So this is what I was telling you, that as soon as glucose enters inside the cells, now this is converted into pyruvate. Till here, oxygen's presence is not mattered. That means oxygen is present or not, it does not matter. Okay. It will occur in both conditions, whether it is aerobic, whether it is anaerobic. Now from here, the presence or absence of oxygen will matter. The fate of pyruvate will be decided now, that whether this cell has supply of oxygen or not. Okay, so now what will happen? See from here, this was the cell. Inside the cell, there is a cell organelle which is called as mitochondria. So now what will happen? Inside this mitochondria, now finally, particularly this glucose or this particularly pyruvate, we can say, okay, from now here, this is just the introduction. So I will leave it to glucose is oxidized. This we have already covered, and to produce ATP. Okay, I can leave this. It is a biochemical process. Now I want to see you people from here. Now inside the cell, glucose, first of all, this is the cytoplasm of the cell, which is shown to you here. Yes, so two molecules of pyruvate, two, because glucose is a 6-carbon molecule, and two molecules of pyruvate, 3 carbon plus 3 carbon. That is how it is being broken down. Okay. Now, glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound, it is being broken down into pyruvate, which is a 3-carbon compound. So there will be total 2 molecules of pyruvate formed. This step takes place in cytoplasm, and this step is called as glycolysis. Glycolysis is not dependent on oxygen. Okay, glycolysis is not dependent on oxygen. That means it can occur in both presence or absence of oxygen. It can occur in both presence or absence of oxygen. It can occur in either ways. Okay. So see from here, absence or presence of oxygen. Now this process is called as glycolysis. Now what exactly is the fate of pyruvate? Now pyruvate enters into mitochondria if oxygen is available. So now this was our cell. And inside the cell cytoplasm, glucose is converted into pyruvate. Now, the deciding role of pyruvate, the fate of pyruvate will be decided if oxygen is supplied or not. If oxygen is supplied to the cells, then what will happen? This pyruvate will enter into the mitochondria. Okay, this will enter into mitochondria. So, and finally here, this pyruvate, which is a 3-carbon compound, it will be broken down in presence of oxygen to release energy in the form of ATP. So finally, ATP molecules are produced. Total 38 ATP molecules are produced. In some books, you will say 36 ATP. In some, you will see 38 ATP. Do not get confused. The reason behind this is 36 or 38. This you will read in higher classes when you will study this in class 11. That is because of a shuttle system. Okay. So for now, you can remember the entire 38 ATP. Okay. But 36 ATP are also possible. Okay, both are good, but remember 38 ATP for now. Okay, so from one glucose, how many ATP molecules are produced if oxygen is available? So initially glucose is converted into pyruvate, and then this pyruvate, if oxygen is available, then it will enter into mitochondria. Okay, if oxygen is present, and here this pyruvate will be converted into 38 ATP molecules plus CO2 plus H2O. So during this, carbon dioxide and water are released as the byproducts. Okay, so carbon dioxide and water are given as the byproducts. Clear, everyone? Have you understood this? Has everyone understood this?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
understood.
Yes. Okay. Now solve this question, everyone. Okay. So yes, well done, everyone. The correct answer is option number B. Very good. Well done, everyone. Glycolysis. Next. Okay. Very good, everyone. Tehin, Alan, Raghavi, Ragul, Devi Maya. Okay. Tehin, what's your answer? Joven? Yes, very good. Option number B. Cytoplasm. Good. Well done, everyone. Next. Okay, Raghavi. Devi Maya, good. Raghavi, good. Ragul, good. Joven, good. Tehin, Alan. Tehin and Alan. Alan, good. Tehin. Tehin, what's your call? Tehin, give your answer. Okay, good. Everyone, yes. So the correct answer is option number A, glucose plus oxygen. Okay. Now, what happens sometimes, okay, sometimes when we are doing very heavy or strenuous exercise. So when we are doing very heavy or strenuous exercise, okay, now suppose this was your cell, and inside this glucose is already present. Now what happens sometimes during when we are doing very heavy exercise, then we run short of breath. Okay, we cannot breathe as efficiently. Then what will happen? Some oxygen, whatever oxygen would be entering, it will be converting glucose into ATP. But there would be some glucose present, to which now, matlab oxygen would not be supplied it in all the efficient manner so that it can convert all the glucose into all the ATP molecules. So some glucose now would be left. Why? Okay. One thing to note here is that when we talk about exercise does not mean that your cells are not supplied with oxygen at all. Okay, this simply means that whatever oxygen is required in the amounts to convert glucose effectively into ATP, that is not supplied to the cells properly. So some part of the glucose will be oxidized, will be broken down in the presence of oxygen. However, some of the glucose molecules now they will face an anaerobic condition. That means oxygen is not getting supplied in a proper amount, in the required amount. So in that condition, glucose now will be converted into pyruvate. That is for sure the most important step, the most essential step. It will happen without any fail. But if oxygen is not supplied in a proper amount, then some of the pyruvate, it can, in this condition is of muscle cells, which I have shown. So some of the pyruvate, it can get converted into lactic acid. It can get converted into lactic acid, and some amount of energy is also released. So the amount of energy which is released here is 2 ATP molecules. Okay. Now this lactic, so you can see from here in muscle cells, some of the pyruvate, it gets broken down anaerobically to produce ATP molecules, but the amount of ATP released here are very low. That is only 2 ATP molecules. And lactic acid, which is formed as a byproduct. It get accumulated in the muscle cells and it causes pain, it causes fatigue, and eventually with more of exercise, it will be normally metabolized by the muscle cells. Okay, so because of this, when you do heavy strenuous exercise, your muscles, they feel cramps, they get strained out. Now solve this question, everyone. Solve this question, everyone. Okay, so yes, well done. The correct answer to this is option number B, lactic acid. Okay. Now, some of the organisms like yeast, they respire in complete absence of oxygen. That means to them, no oxygen is available. So again, what will happen? Glucose will initially be converted into pyruvate. That is for sure short. Now this pyruvate will be converted into ethanol. Now see, pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound. Ethanol is a 2-carbon compound. So to balance this, one CO2 is also released. And some amount of energy is also released, which is again might be 2 ATP molecules. Okay. So pyruvate, that is getting converted in the absence of oxygen into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Okay. Understood? This is called as fermentation. This is called as fermentation. Okay, clear? Understood, everyone? Okay, now one more thing which I want to tell you people here is, see, I am writing this equation, glucose is getting converted into pyruvate. See what happens during this reaction only. 2 ATP molecules are manufactured. Yes. So during this process only, when glucose is getting converted into pyruvate, 2 ATP molecules are already being synthesized. Now, if oxygen is available, then this pyruvate will be converted into CO2 plus H2O plus more energy. So this energy now here, this energy plus these 2 ATP, the total will be 38 ATPs. However, when we talk about when pyruvate is converted into lactic acid in absence of oxygen in muscles, then during this lactic acid in NCERT, it has been shown that lactic acid plus energy. Okay, this energy is basically these 2 ATP molecules only which are formed during glycolysis. In NCERT, these 2 ATP are not mentioned here. They are directly being mentioned at the end stage. But these 2 ATP molecules, they are formed in the first step itself. Okay. And finally, when we talk about pyruvate is converted into fermentation, for example, in ethanol. And during this, carbon dioxide is released and again energy. So this energy again refers to these ATP molecules only, which are formed here. Okay. In NCERT, since it is not shown here 2 ATP molecules, so they have written it at the end. But these 2 molecules have been formed during the first stage only. Clear, everyone? Understood? Everyone,
Understood,
have you
ma'am.
understood? Okay. Alan, Devimaya, Jovin, Tehin. Okay. Now let's conclude what we have studied. So we have studied cellular respiration and we have also studied the gaseous exchange at alveoli level. Okay. And in next class, what we are going to begin? So we are going to do some experiments which are mentioned in your NCERT, the lime water experiment. Okay, this we will do. And question had been asked from this also in your boards. So this experiment is important. And then if time permits, then we will see the composition of blood. That means we will move to transportation system. Okay.